I will talk here about the theme of storytelling and why it is, for the most part, essential to good storytelling. The theme of a story could also be the premise of the story, but whatever it is, the theme is asking a simple and singular question. Why are we here? To that question, what is the extent of our investment in this story? Why are we invested in the man fighting the monster? Is he fighting against the monster to save the world, to save the girl, to save his own skin? Or is he fighting the monster for some esoteric purpose? A fixation of evil on behalf of the monster, and that the man fights literally against the devil himself. Money doesn't come from trees, but paper does. The investment in printing books, magazines, writing scripts, paying scriptwriters, film crews, special effects, the time and investment in telling stories for the big screen, and the investment of the moviegoer who spends their money and time to watch a movie, or the time to sit down and read a novel. For what reason? Stories have been told throughout human history, to tell a history or to tell a fable, to tell a moral truth, or to carve into stone that someone existed in time to have put these words here. For action and fantasy stories, this is an obvious thing. We are here for escape and detachment from the world. This is why Star Wars and Star Trek have such overt longevity among modern fantasy franchises. Because while they are detachments from the world we live in, they are by and large positive stories of people going about larger-than-life activities for some noble and grand goal, either to defeat an enemy or the overcoming of obstacles. The general positive character of these fantasies is because the main characters of these fantasies do not seek the destruction of their adversaries, but the overcoming of them. Whether or not the adversaries are destroyed generally comes by the actions of the adversaries themselves. The themes here are generally good versus evil, or positive versus negative, the white hats against the black hats. And while one side seeks to overcome the other, in the story they are equal opposing forces, and so the eternal question of good versus evil is never fully resolved, as the premise of the story is the eternal fight of good versus evil. These stories have long-lasting appeal. Good versus evil is an extremely old and simple theme. It's not because of the simplicity of the theme that these fantasies have such overt, lasting appeal, but the fact that the theme is there in the first place. It asks the question, why are we here? And the rest of the story is there to tell us. You can spend hours, days, perhaps weeks or decades picking apart each episode of Star Trek or Star Wars, the television shows and the movies, and see where one story is superior or inferior to the other. The simple fact people are willing to go through that effort also proves the long-lasting appeal of the fantasies, because you are working for the benefit of the theme these fantasies represent. In this regard, theme is essential to good storytelling, because the worst and best story can have all the functioning organs of a story, the plot, the action, characters, dialogue, but because the story is at once a reflection of the world around us and a projection of the world beyond our grasp, there has to be a why, even so slightly, to why one would take the time and investment to either compose the story or to consume it. If one composes a story with plot, action, character, dialogue, and refines it without so much as a why, the reason for being, this might reflect something in the life of the person composing the story. We all know life is what you make it, and life does not have an explicit meaning to it other than what we can carve out of the moments we live. Even a spy thriller has a why, a reason for being, imposed upon the main character or by omission reflected in the contrary actions of the antagonist, by the author. This reason for being could be patriotism, or love of country, or a desire to uphold the laws of that nation. Even revenge, more basic than the theme of good versus evil, asks why. Even though the revenge story is still a one versus another, protagonist and antagonist story, it still provides a why, a premise, a motive for why certain aspects of action have to take place. the reason for the actions to be. Because one was wronged, then the story has to define what this violation was, how the character was wronged, by what moral or ethical standard. What is peculiar to theme is that it isn't necessarily explicit. If the theme of an artistic expression is, in fact, explicit, this is more or less propaganda or a moralization, where the reason for being is the only reason the expression is there. The theme of Christ exists in the image of the cross. They are one and the same. Still, images of the cross can be in stories and be props in a story without overt moralization, but the expression of the cross itself, for itself, is itself only a moralizing point. A World War II War Bonds Drive poster is in of itself a matter of propaganda, pointing out a defined evil for the benefit or the purpose of the creator of the image. Whether good or bad, this underlying character of good or evil does not change the fact it is propaganda. More or less, propaganda is the theme above all other aspects of storytelling, and most effective as an immediate visual artifact. Implicit theme is the why, told by the existence of the characters, their actions, the reasons for their actions, their motivations, all assembled together in a totality of the story. The theme is there, but the reader of the story or the viewer of the movie will only understand the theme as they watch the story. It is not plastered on the faces of the characters, but implied in their actions and motivations. The reason for their being as derived from their histories, their dialogue, the narrative ultimately told. A good story is where the theme of the story is integrated with everything in the story, as much a part of the story as the set pieces or the time period or the characters themselves and their actions. Key to implicit nature of theme in a story is that the theme isn't exactly expressed. As with good art, it does not have to be the theme the creator of the work desired to convey, but that the viewer understood some reason for the story being without any external explanation. This does not exclude examination or interpretation of the intended theme of the artist. The viewer will have concluded some theme independently of any such examination or interpretation. Examination or interpretation, whether accurate or not, should only contribute to what the viewer of a good work of art had already concluded. The examination or interpretation of the theme would add to what is already assumed of the work and not contradict. Whatever the artifacts in the movie No Country for Old Men, whatever the interpretations, this does not change the fact Anton Chigurh's central presence in the movie is as an agent of inevitable fate. Whether he is a function of chance, the devil incarnate, the angel of death, or a hitman who never misses. Here we have the theme of fate as expressed in the illusion of choice, that the peripheral characters who interact with the hitman are dispatched or not, dependent only on the actions of the hitman. The accountant, the old man at the service station, the fellow at the desk in the hotel the protagonist discovers the tracking device in. Their lives hang on whether Chigurh decides they should live or die. These characters are easily and swiftly disposed of as necessary. The old man in the Ford sedan, the associates who drive Chigurh to the botched drug deal, the man who picks Llewellyn Moss off the street. Anton Chigurh is so detached from the implications of the actions he takes, apart from his core motivation, that he is almost alien. He is fate, expressed as an unseen force in the shadows, in opposition to the illusion of choice the other characters place upon themselves. Isn't this the theme of the ages? Fate, the force on the lives of all, this singular, inescapable force which, whether divine or not, alters and shapes the lives of everyone who has lived and lives now. What defines the future by copying the past? Is choice an illusion that can be overcome? Is fate a force that cannot be stopped, what we call divine intervention, or what we personify as agents in physical form, the devil, the angel of death? Perhaps one could distill from mythology the force of fate and clear away these physical agents and see with our own eyes what this world is. But this is not what we work for. The world is what it is, and we express this in works of philosophy and fiction and mythology. While science tells us what is because it is, for what is art but to express why something might be, or how it can be otherwise without breaking the thesis of existence?